Hello, my name is Cheruka. I will be presenting the effects of a single evening vinyasa yoga session on sleep in adults with insomnia symptoms. All questions can be emailed to caitlin.cheruka@ucf.edu. For this presentation, there are no potential conflicts of interest to disclose. Vinyasa yoga is a form of yoga that links the breath with the movement. Because of this, it has higher energy expenditure, perhaps than other types of yoga, and has been sparsely studied for its effect on sleep in adults with insomnia. It remains unknown whether and how an acute bout of vinyasa yoga performed in the evening impacts sleep as well as autonomic function. This led us to the purpose of the study, which was to examine the effects of an acute session of vinyasa yoga performed in the evening on sleep and nocturnal heart rate variability, a measure of cardiovascular autonomic function in adults with insomnia symptoms. This study recruited 33 insufficiently active adults with at least mild insomnia symptoms. Insomnia symptoms were assessed using the Insomnia Severity Index with a score of at least 10 or greater to be included in the study. This has been shown to be the optimal cutoff point for detecting insomnia. Our sample included 84.8% female, 78.8% white, with the average age of 34.9 years and the average body mass index of 28.9 kilograms per meter squared. Sleep was objectively assessed using a risk accelerometer in conjunction with a sleep diary, and heart rate variability was assessed using a chest heart rate monitor. Heart rate variability was derived from the entire heart rate recording across the nocturnal period, and it was standardized for the sleep duration, with the root mean square of successive differences, RMSSD for short, as the primary heart rate variability outcome. Participants were randomized into either a vinyasa yoga session, which included 17 participants. These participants followed a 60-minute pre-recorded vinyasa yoga sequence. This included a person demonstrating along with verbal cues. The poses were standing, seated, and supine. We had 16 participants randomized to the control group. They were instructed to sit quietly for 60 minutes while watching a nature documentary and refrain from using electronic devices. Statistical analyses included linear and mixed models and Cohen's d effect sizes to compare pre to post intervention. Next, we'll walk through the participant flow through the experimental session. So participants completed baseline assessments which occurred over a 1-week period. This is where we measured sleep and heart rate variability. Upon completion of all baseline assessments, participants then were instructed to report to the research center between the hours of 3 and 8 p.m. We started with pre-session assessments, and then participants were randomized into either the yoga or control condition. Each condition was 60 minutes. Upon completion, participants then repeated the pre-session assessments, and then before participants left, they were given their risk accelerometer, a sleep diary, and the heart rate monitor to wear for one night following that experimental session. Moving on to the results, the next few graphs show each condition, the yoga and control group, and the scores for each participant in blue. The orange indicates the mean score for each group. So the change in actigraphy assessed sleep efficiency from pre to post experimental session did not differ between the two groups, with small effect sizes shown for between and within group comparisons. The change in total sleep time from before to after the experimental session did not differ between the two groups, again observing small between and within group comparisons. Furthermore, none of the other actigraphy assessed sleep variables exhibit significant changes from baseline to after the initial experimental session. And finally, the change in nocturnal RMSSD heart rate variability from pre to post experimental session did not significantly differ between the two groups. Again, we observe small between and within group comparisons. Furthermore, none of the other heart rate variability parameters assessed were found to be significant from pre to post experimental session. In conclusion, an acute bout of Vinyasa yoga performed in the early evening did not significantly change accelerometer or diary assessed sleep or significantly impact cardiovascular autonomic function during sleep. It has been previously speculated from sources of online yoga blogs and websites that more rigorous styles of yoga, such as Vinyasa yoga, are to be performed in the earlier part of the day, whereas more calming and restorative practices are for the latter part of the day to avoid disrupting sleep. To the best of our knowledge, these statements have not been substantiated by evidence and remain largely speculative. Previous studies on evening yoga have primarily focused on gentle forms of yoga. However, our study stands as the first to investigate the immediate effects of Vinyasa yoga practiced in the early evening on sleep that same night. Additionally, to the best of our knowledge, this study is the first to examine whether an acute bout of Vinyasa yoga impacts nocturnal heart rate variability parameters. Although our study did not show any significant improvements in nocturnal heart rate variability, it's important to note that we did not observe any impairments in nocturnal heart rate variability, which would have been indicated by altered autonomic function, particularly with a decrease in parasympathetic nervous system activity overnight. In healthy individuals during non-rapid eye movement sleep, this is a time of parasympathetic dominance, resulting in a decrease in heart rate and an increase in heart rate variability as one progresses from lighter to deeper stages of sleep. However, those with insomnia have been found to exhibit lower nocturnal heart rate variability values across all stages of sleep. Based on our findings, an acute bout of Vinyasa yoga performed in the early evening is unlikely to lead to impairments in parasympathetic nervous system activity during sleep in adults with mild to moderate insomnia symptoms. This study is of clinical significance because insomnia is the most prevalent sleep disorder in the population. Approximately 30% of adults have at least one insomnia symptoms, and approximately 10% of adults meet criteria for insomnia disorder. Also, insomnia is associated with negative health outcomes, such as cardiovascular disease. We know that cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death worldwide, and those with insomnia have a higher risk of also developing subclinical cardiovascular biomarkers, such as impairment in heart rate variability and hypertension. Therefore, looking at therapies that can improve both sleep and cardiovascular health are urgently needed. Vinyasa yoga is a type of yoga that is more dynamic. It has been shown to meet moderate intensity physical activity requirements. Therefore, it may be a beneficial therapy to improve sleep as well as cardiovascular health. However, longer-term studies are needed to look at the long-term effects. However, our study found that Vinyasa yoga performed in the early evening is unlikely to benefit or impair sleep in adults with insomnia symptoms. Thank you for your time, and please email me with any questions at caitlin.cheruka@ucf.edu.